Video games. Video games have risen in popularity massively the past few decades, with multiple innovations being made each single year. From exhilarating sports games to violent war games. This development on video games has led to discussions regarding what effects these games might be having on kids, from negative addiction-like effects to positive problem-solving skills, as suggested by the APA. And what should parents do about this rise in video game playtime? Main points I'm going to cover today are potential effects of video games to people, mainly children, parents' opinions on the effects of video games, and gamers' opinions on the effects of video games. First, I want to ask, have any of you ever played a video game? For those of you that said yes, most of you probably had fun playing that video game. Some of you probably went on to play that game a second time, and some of you probably went on to play it many more times, for many, many hours. That's the first potential effect. Addiction. An analysis done by Media Smarts on international studies have concluded that about 10 to 11% of gamers show symptoms widely associated with addiction. These are school-aged children already having to deal with addiction issues. Most activities that can even cause addiction are limited till the person is 18 years or older, which leads into my next potential effect, which happens to young adults and children. Research done in Norway and analyzed by the Child Family blog have determined a correlation between higher video game usage and lower social skills or competence. This is a rather large red flag, as especially during these teenage years, most kids develop their social skills majorly. Although it is important to look at these studies and complex research, it is also important to look at the opinion of the people who have the closest interaction with video games, gamers, and their parents. First, I'm going to start with the parents' opinion. The Not a Game documentary, released in 2020 on Netflix, covers many of the effects video games cause, but in particular, it goes in depth on what the parents and gamers think. On the parents' side, it shows how parents are struggling with this new era of video games as they are watching their kids only play more and more hours on these games. This documentary interviews multiple parents, with most of them tending to agree on one thing. There should be a limit placed on the games, with some sort of balance between how much time they spend on these games and how much time they spend out in the real world. Which leads me into the gamers' opinions on the effects of video games. Gamers in this documentary are very much shown to have the opposite opinion of their parents, as they believe video games are a new world for them to explore and be themselves. Actor RJ Mitt, who's in Breaking Bad, who's a gamer himself, adds to this concept in the documentary by saying how going out into the world and exploring can be done in the video game, and that's how gamers get it done. Basically meaning that in the video games, they are having those experiences that they would have exploring in the real world. So clearly, he thinks gaming is a positive effect, as most gamers do, while the parents are leaning towards the effects of video games being negative. So what do you think? Should there be limitations on video games based on these differing opinions? So with this information and these opinions gathered, it is up to society to decide how important these effects are and if there should be limits placed due to these effects, and if they should be moderated in the future, as it is still very early in the video game era.